Hey guys, we are finishing off our series Love Southport as we talk and think about what it means to love our community. Over the last few weeks we've thought about community, love, and last week serve. And as we finish off this week we'll be thinking about giving. And I totally get it if some of you are thinking, why is Paul talking to us about giving? Surely this is a topic for the adults. And I can kind of understand what you mean. So before we begin, I want to explain that I'm not going to be giving you loads of financial advice. Even though some of you might find that quite helpful, I'm not going to be mentioning the stock markets or saving accounts. But what we're going to be talking about is attitudes and priorities. If we look at someone's money, or better yet, how someone spends their money, I believe we'll see what they find most important in their life, and maybe even some of their opinions too. Some of you might be surprised by this, but let me tell you an interesting fact. There is a shop in America who can predict whether someone is pregnant or not based solely on slight changes in their weekly shop. This can even happen before the person knows they are pregnant themselves. And it sounds weird, I know, but they'd noticed was if people were buying scent-free lotion, lots of cotton ball pads and vitamin supplements, they can start predicting when someone is getting pregnant. And this is a bit crazy, I know, but based on these kind of purchases, they will begin to send advertisements to people for baby accessories, even though they might not have told anyone about their pregnancy. The point of this story is that how we use our money says something about us. But giving can go further than money. It can be our time, our resources, our help. But what we can give says something about us. So today's topic is totally relevant to your parents, but it's totally relevant to you too. As we continue to think about giving, let's start thinking about everything we can give, like we've just said. Today we're going to read a part of the Bible that was specifically written to Christians of the day by a guy called John. And the church at the time would have taken a special interest in the words of John because he was one of Jesus' disciples. He'd been with him through everything. He was at the cross when he died and was the first disciple to arrive at the tomb when he was risen. And he was part of a group of people who had a conversation with Jesus after he rose again. And he was so convinced with what he saw and witnessed that he spent the rest of his life not only telling other people about what he saw, but was beaten, imprisoned and exiled for his faith. And he said this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need and has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. This is how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. Jesus gave us the most incredible gift, and that was his life. He came as a baby, vulnerable and humbly, living the most extraordinary life. He was able to show the people of the day that the person that they had long awaited for, this Messiah, had arrived. But he wasn't what they expected. They anticipated a man to come and deliver them from freedom from Rome, the empire. But Jesus came to deal with a much bigger problem that they couldn't see: sin and death. Sin was at fault for all the bad in the world. It's the distance we create between ourselves and God through our selfish ambition, rather than live an obedient life to God, honouring and worshipping him. As Jesus died on the cross, the people began to see that the king that they'd long awaited for was upon a cross all alone. His death wasn't final as people thought, as he rose again and he showed that the battle with sin and death was over. All who believe can accept the grace and this gift that was offered to us, even though we can't earn it on our own. As he ascended to his Father, we can celebrate, as it means Jesus is constantly taking our prayers and requests to God. The relationship that was broken is now mended, and we no longer need to stay in our sin. This is what John is talking about when he talks about real love. This is the life we are being called into, one of selfless ambition with the aim to worship and glorify God. Don't get confused when I say worship. I don't just mean singing a few songs. It's our attitude, it's how we live in the everyday, not just on a Sunday. See, if you are here and are not a Christian, you're more than welcome for Jesus' love, and you can have this opportunity to receive that gift. And if you're sitting here as a follower of Jesus, we need to live our lives in a way that gives our gift back to God. James, Jesus' brother, which is just crazy. If anyone isn't going to believe you when you say you're the Messiah and that we should worship them, surely it's your brother. But no, James was so convinced Jesus was who he said he was that he died for his beliefs. And one thing he said was this: every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. This means today everything we have comes from the creator of it all. Everything we own actually has its origins with God. And you might be thinking, why is that important? It's important because everything you hold claim to actually came from God. And now as Christians, we live with a selfless ambition to share all that God has given us. Now, I'm not suggesting we should go and share our toothbrush with someone else, because that's kind of grim. But let's change our attitudes and our priorities. When Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? This is what he said. One of them, an expert of the law, tested him with this question: Teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law of the prophets hang on these two commandments. So our priorities should be love God and love others as we love ourselves. And what does this look like? It looks like serving and giving to others. One of Jesus' most common topics he spoke about was money. Because where your money is, your heart is. And once we choose to focus our attention on God and loving others, our attitudes and priorities will change. Finally, the choices and actions we live by will change too. So what can we do this week? What can this look like? Maybe you actually do have money, and I want to challenge you to think about who and what you're spending it on. Make decisions to give some of your money back to God. And we call this tithing in church. I'm not going to tell you a certain percentage that you should do, but you can make a choice to give some of the money that you have back to God. Maybe you don't have money, but you have other things that you believe you can give back to God. Last week we spoke about serving, giving your time or your talents towards something. Lastly, maybe you've never made the decision to receive the gift from Jesus, and you'd like to. You want to accept his love and want to share that with others. So why don't you let one of the leaders know, and so we can pray with you. As I finish, I want to leave us with a question. Jesus' priority is you. He's given you a gift. What are you going to do with that gift? How can we give like Jesus?